Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech, and today we're going to be talking about $50 Rakdos Menace in Pioneer. I'm very excited to bring this list to you. As always, before we hop into the video, let me know in the comment section below at the end of the video, what do you think about the list? Is there a card that I definitely should have included that I didn't? There were a ton of spicy cards with Menace that I wasn't unfortunately able to fit into the list, but just let me know in the comment section below if I definitely should have put them in the list. And before we also hop into the video, for the first time since I've pretty much done a video since we hit 500 subscribers. So if you'd like to become a channel member, you can start that today. It starts at only $1 a month. You can cancel at any time. There's a ton of fantastic things you get in addition to that. And the best thing being you can join the member exclusive Discord. So if you're interested in doing that, you can just click the join button at the bottom of the screen there. So, okay, let's go and hop into the list here. So $50 Rakdos Menace. It's a very, very fun aggro deck and on a budget. When I was building the deck, essentially I built the entire deck non-budget, and it was only probably around, I think not including like lands and Thoughtseize, it was like about $60. And I thought, you know what, let's just make it a $50 deck at that point, and then we can talk about the upgrades later on. So, all right, let's go and hop into it here. So we're only playing a couple 1-drops. We're playing 2 Forsworn Paladin and 4 Stalactite Stalker. So Forsworn Paladin, just a solid card overall. It's really just a great mana sink. You know, we can tap 2, pay a life, make a treasure, and then 2 and a black, give a creature +2/+0 until end of turn. But if a mana from a treasure was spent to activate this ability, it also gets Death Touch, which is pretty sweet. So just a big fan of the card in general. It's just a great late game mana sink, which I'm always a big fan of cards like that. Stalactite Stalker is also very, very strong. So this card's been picking up a lot of steam recently, not so much in Standard, but in Pioneer and Modern. People are starting to figure out that this card is very, very good, and in this deck, it's definitely no exception. We're not going to be descending a lot for the most part. At least, you know, we don't have a lot of self-descend, but you know, whenever our creatures die or anything, that triggers it, which is pretty sweet. So I'm definitely a big fan of this card in general. We're also playing 4 Blade of the Oni. This card is just really, really cool. 3/1 for 2 with Menace, but equipped creature has base power and toughness 5/5, has Menace, and is a black demon in addition to its other colors and types. And then we can reconfigure it for 2 black, which means we can unattach it and it becomes a creature, or attach it, and then the equipped creature becomes a 5/5 demon with Menace, which is pretty sweet. So again, just another great late game mana sink. If we really have nothing going on, we can turn our 3/1 Menace, we can make one of our creatures a 5/5 with Menace, which is sweet. And it's also cool with Stalactite Stalker, for instance, if it has a couple 1/1 counters on it, so it becomes a 5/5, and it has the 1/1 counter. So it's just a really cool card, and I wanted to feature it just because I like to try to feature unique cards here on the channel, just because, you know, it's kind of cool, you know, when you see a bunch of different cards that you normally don't get to see. So, next slide here. Some of our 2-drops and 3-drops, actually our 2-drop, the best card in the deck in my opinion, Labyrinth Raptor. We're playing 4 copies of this card. It's a 2/2 for 2 with Menace. Whenever a creature you control with Menace becomes blocked, defending player sacrifices a creature blocking it, and then for a black and a red, we can give our creatures our control that we control with Menace +1/+0 until end of turn. This card is extremely good. Pretty self-explanatory, obviously. You know, they use 2 creatures to block our dude. We trigger that after blocks are declared. They have to sacrifice a dude. Hopefully they can still kill our creature. If they can, cool. If they can't, then it's kind of, they don't really want to block. And that's kind of why we can catch them off guard with removal spells as well, which will kind of make sense once we get toward the end of the video. Like, we're playing, for instance, like Bone Crusher Giant, Fatal Push, that kind of thing. So, excuse me. If we attack and then they don't have enough toughness or power to be able to kill our creatures, we kind of just blow them out for the most part. And Labyrinth Raptor is also obviously a pseudo anthem, which is pretty sweet. We have a ton of late game mana sinks in this deck, so we're always going to have something to do. We're also playing 4 Furnace Punisher. I've been a huge fan of this card since it came out in Phyrexia All Will Be One. I haven't seen it in a ton of different decks, but this card is so good. 3/3 for 3 with Menace. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, Furnace Punisher deals 2 damage to that player unless they control 2 or more basic lands. So, a couple of things. Spoiler alert, we're playing a lot of basics, which honestly is fine. We're a budget deck anyways. We want to be playing a bunch of basics. The second thing is with Furnace Punisher is most decks in Pioneer are not playing a lot of basics, even the monocolor decks. You know, like for instance, let's say like a traditional mono green deck. You know, they're going to be playing Lair of the Hydras. They're going to be playing Besagus. They might even be playing Hash of Oasis. They're going to be playing, what's another big, Nykthos. They might be playing some Nykthos, maybe some Castle Garenbrigs. So even the monocolor decks might not always have two basics. Obviously, you know, this card is not meant for those decks, but all those 2-3 color decks, they're just going to be taking 2 damage every single turn. We play this on turn 3. Boom, they're going to take 2 with their upkeep. Hopefully it survives the following turn. We attack them for 3 with Menace. Oh, it gets the 3 damage through with the Menace. Boom, their next upkeep, they're going to be taking another 2 damage. This card just racks up so much damage in a short amount of time. I'm a huge fan of Furnace Punisher. We're also playing 4 Hunted Nightmares, so this card is really cool. One of the main reasons I also wanted to build the deck, 4/5 for 3 with Menace. Okay, so there's got to be a downside, and there technically is. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent puts a death touch counter on a creature they control. So obviously the idea, you know, it needs, they need 2 creatures to be able to block the Haunted Nightmare, but obviously they'll be able to trade, you know, because they'll have the Death Touch creature, but still really, really good. And guess what? We can also just play the Haunted Nightmare, untap, and then we can Fatal Push their guy, or we can just take it out, whatever. Boom, we have a 4/5 for 3 with Menace, an extremely good rate. Definitely pairs very well with Labyrinth Raptor. I'm just a big fan of Haunted Nightmare in general. So, next slide here. Kind of finishing out our creatures and our last Menace synergy card. We're playing 4 Bonecrusher Giant. Guess what? The card doesn't have Menace. It doesn't matter. The card is just that good. It's a removal spell in an efficient creature, rolled in a 1. That's why we're playing 4 Bonecrusher Giant, and it's also very budget friendly. Then we're also playing 4 Sonorous Howlbonder. This card is just really cool. 2/2 for 3 with Menace. Not an extremely good rate, but each creature you control with Menace can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. So it makes all of our creatures even harder to block. Guess what? If our opponent only has 2 creatures, they don't get to block. It just gives our creatures unblockable, which is pretty cool. So definitely a big fan of Sonorous Howlbonder. I wish the card was maybe like a 3/2 or a 3/3, but hey, you know what? Half the time just being able to win the game by playing this is pretty sweet. Then we're also playing 4 Tentative Connection. This card is super spicy. So it's normally a 3 in a red act of treason, but if we control a creature with Menace, it costs 3 less to cast. So it's essentially 1 red in an act of treason. So for those who play against like Claim the Firstborn, for instance, this is basically just a Claim the Firstborn, but for anything. It's not just creature with CMC 3 or less, which is pretty sweet. So definitely a big fan of Tentative Connection. Obviously against like some of the mid-range and the control decks, you're going to want to sideboard this out. But in the aggro matchup, this card can single-handedly win the game for you. This card is sweet. Definitely a big fan of Tentative Connection. So last thing we got to talk about is a little bit of a removal package that we're playing. So obviously we're playing 4 Bonecrusher Giant, but we're also playing 4 Fatal Push and 2 Power Word Kill. Kind of the idea with our removal spells is obviously we're Rakdos, so we're going to want to be taking out creatures. But what's really sweet is with the Labyrinth Raptor, with the trigger, they block with 2 creatures, they have to sacrifice 1, and then still before damage, we can go ahead and just take out the other one. Or simply put, they have 2 creatures, just take out 1, boom, all of our creatures have Menace, they can't block any of them. So that's kind of the idea with the removal spells. And with Power Word Kill, I put Power Word Kill as the Doomblade effect of choice, at least for kind of where I play. But you want to know what? It depends on your metagame. If there's a lot of like angel decks in your area, just go ahead and swap it out. You know, if there's a lot of dragons, kind of the same thing. You know, you can play cards like Go for the Throat is pretty good. Heck, if there's not even a lot of black decks in your metagame, you could even play like Doomblade. But that's personally what I would recommend. You could also play like Infernal Grasp. Bitter Triumph is also very strong. I'm a big fan of that card, and it does help trigger the Descend on the Stalactite Stalker. It's really up to you for the most part. It's just whatever Doomblade effect you want to play, you can just go ahead and slot it in there. So that's our entire main board, except for our lands. And then we have to talk about our budget or our sideboard, and as well as upgrade options. So the lands are pretty simple. We're playing 3 Blackleaves Cliffs. We're only playing 3 just because I couldn't fit 4 into the budget, but if you have 4 of them, feel free to go ahead and play them. We're also playing 4 Restless Fence as our other dual land, and I love this for multiple reasons. So obviously, it's a dual land in our colors. It's a man land, which is sweet. Very budget friendly. They only go for about $1 a piece. But what's sweet is when we activate it, it has Menace itself, which obviously works really, really well with our deck. And then when it attacks, you get to Rummage, which is pretty sweet, which also can actually trigger Descend now that I think about it, which is pretty sweet. But definitely a big fan of Restless Fence. We're also playing 2 Hive of the Eye Tyrant. It's the black manland from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. And again, it has Menace itself, so it synergizes with our deck, which is pretty sweet. So I knew when I was building this deck, I wanted to include these 100% just because they are very, very strong lands, especially in a deck like this. And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 5 swamps and 6 mountains. Obviously, you know, we're a budget deck, so we're going to play a lot of basics, but we're also playing Furnace Punisher, so we kind of want to make sure we have some basics in play. That way we're not taking damage from our own Furnace Punisher. And then as our spicy basic land of the day, I decided to play the Ikoria basics just because we have a lot of Ikoria cards in here and I figured they're cool. And I don't really feature these basic lands that much. You know, in a world full of full arts and alt arts and oil slicks and textured, all these sweet lands you can play, sometimes it's cool just to play a more traditional basic land. So, you know, don't lose sight of that, you know. RIP regular basics, I guess. But okay, so let's go and hop into the sideboard here. Sideboard is really simple. I always forget to mention this, but if you're looking to see what I'm playing in my exact sideboard, my deck list is in the description below if you'd like to check it out. The entire main board and sideboard is featured there. But anyways, we're gonna watch some Graveyard Hate. Tormod's Crypt is the best option. You could also play Soul Guide Lantern if you want a little bit of card draw. I also would recommend some extra removal. Cards like Raven Enfeeblement, Lithomantic Barrage, and Abrade are fantastic just because Lithomantic Barrage, obviously good against any deck that's playing like white or blue creatures. Abrade is really good at Smuggler's Copter. There's a lot of Smuggler's Copters floating around right now, and it's great just because you can kill a creature or destroy an artifact. It's just very strong. Anti-life gain. There's a ton of Amalia combo floating around in the format right now. We're definitely going to want some anti-life gain. I would personally recommend, on a budget, a card like Giant Cindermaw. I think that's personally the best option. But if you also do have some Roiling Vortexes laying around, you could definitely play those. We're also going to want some discard spells. Cards like Duress are fantastic. You could also play a card like Go Blank, for instance, if you'd like to. Both very, very strong options to play. And then our upgrade options. So the first thing I would upgrade, Rampaging Ferocidon. It's the original 3/3 Menace from Ixalan. It would have been in the main board, except for the fact that they're kind of pricey right now, just because, again, the Amalia combo is everywhere right now. So anti-life gain cards are very, very strong. If you have some Rampaging Ferocidons, I would highly suggest even just putting it in the main. You could even replace the Furnace Punisher or even the Hunted Nightmare if you'd like. Technically, I would do the Furnace Punisher just because the next thing says upgrade the dual lands and the utility lands. So as you upgrade your dual and utility lands, so you get your Blood Crypts, you get your Pathways, you get your Takanumas, your Sekenzans. A lot of the basic lands are going to be trimmed from the deck, so therefore you don't have as many basics. Furnace Punisher's not as good, so that's personally the swap that I would make. And as always get some Thoughtseize for the deck. If you're looking to upgrade this, Thoughtseize is fantastic. You can play it in the main board or the sideboard. It's really up to you, but the card is very, very strong, and it's a little bit pricey, so don't feel like you need these for sure to be able to play the deck, but if you've got some lying around, I highly suggest playing them at least in the sideboard. So, well, that's our entire deck. Looks like we flew through this one mostly because we had a lot of 4-ups, but thanks for watching this video. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about the list? Is there a card that I forgot to include? And as always, if you have any suggestions for upcoming videos, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. So, I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.